I think we are live. Hey there, how's it going? Lee Hayward here with the Total Fitness Bodybuilding video chat for Friday, December the 22nd. Counting down the days to Christmas, getting very close now. And hopefully this is coming through loud and clear. If you can hear me, if you can see me, if this is coming through fine on your end, please let me know. Just type a loud and clear into our chat window. So we are streaming simultaneously from the Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook page, as well as the Total Fitness Bodybuilding YouTube channel. We got Lee saying it is coming through loud and clear. Much appreciated, Lee. Thank you for that. Good stuff. All right. So I want to get things organized on my end, and I'm just going to wait a few moments for people to pop onto our live stream. Good stuff. And for those of you who are regulars, you know the run of the mill for our live Q&A that we have here. But for those of you who are brand new, I want to welcome you. It's always nice to have new people joining in for our Q&A. And the way this works is I'm going to be hanging out here for the next hour, answering questions and topics of discussion related to health and wellness, fitness and nutrition, any specific challenges you may be dealing with when it comes to your workouts, when it comes to your eating habits, lifestyle, fitness routine, building muscle, losing fat, any of those topics of discussion that you have, we will address them during our video chat. And how I want you to do that is type in your questions and topics into the chat window. So if you're over on YouTube, we have the live stream, plus there's a chat window on the side there. You can type in your questions and topics there. If you're catching this on Facebook, then there should be the comment section below the video, and you can type in your questions and topics there, and I will be able to address them that way as well. So either one is fine with me, whether it's coming through Facebook or coming through YouTube. And let us see. Seems to be coming through fine. We have a mix of people. Most people are watching through YouTube, of course. That's our standard platform, but we do have people joining in from Facebook as well. Good stuff. All right, so we've got Richard joining in from Iowa. Welcome, Richard. Glad to have you. We have Baby Boomer Fitness joining in, loud and clear. Loud abs clear. I know you mean loud and clear. Thank you. We have Emma's joining in. Merry Christmas as well to you. Merry Christmas in advance. Awesome. Let's see. We have, I can't pronounce your name. Do apologize. I'm going to call you Mr. X. Zulio? Zujo? I know I'm butchering that, right? I do apologize, but Mr. Mecco. There we go. I'll call you by your last name, Mr. Mecco. Glad to see you too. All right. Good. Bless me. There. Get that out. Second, guys, I have a question that came through in advance that I want to address, and it's a good one. It's a training related question, and this one is from Andrew, who's a regular of our video chats, but Andrew lives over in the UK, and over in the UK it's getting quite late. I know we still have people over in the UK watching now. You're night owls of the group, right? Staying up to the wee hours of the morning watching the video chat, which, hey, much respect, kudos, and appreciate the support. But Andrew always catches the replay afterwards. He gets to bed at a decent hour on Fridays. So much respect. Good for you. So I'm going to address Andrew's question, and then I'm going to jump in and answer some questions that you guys have. Any questions and topics of discussion? All right, so let's jump right into it. Andrew's saying he's doing 10 to 20 sets per muscle group, and he says his back never gets sore. He says, I'm taking most of my sets to failure, if not close to failure. Can I add extra sets for more volume? Apparently, some people need more volume than others, and that's absolutely true. He says, I've learned over time with my body, when a muscle doesn't get sore, it doesn't grow. And it's not always a direct correlation, but generally speaking, if you do feel some soreness after a workout, it's probably a good sign that, yeah, you stimulated that muscle. If you never feel any soreness, yeah, I mean, it doesn't mean the workout wasn't productive, but you know, at the same time, it's probably you didn't maximize it. Put it that way. We'll just say that. Maximize the stimulation, that is. So anyway, Andrew's saying he finds if he doesn't get sore, he doesn't grow. And he says, He's wondering if he can add in more volume for his back workouts. And you know what? You can certainly prioritize any stubborn body part. And it's good that you're aware of this, because when it comes to training, once you've been working out for any appreciable amount of time, so like you've been training for a couple of years consistently, you're going to find certain body parts respond better than others. Like, assuming you've been training all your muscle groups in balance and proportion, which I hope you are. And if you're not, hopefully you start doing so. But this is common. And like, even when I'm coaching people one-on-one, I'll find that, okay, we'll start off with a well-balanced training program, hitting all major muscle groups in balance and proportion. And then after a while, we'll probably see certain body parts making good progress and certain body parts are lagging behind. And there's numerous reasons for this. It could be just genetics. It could be you're not getting as good of a mind-muscle connection in those body parts. Like, sometimes we have certain muscle groups that genetically and naturally have more muscle fibers, more muscle cells, and they just respond better. And then other body parts are just naturally weaker. Like in my case, my calves respond very well. In fact, I rarely do direct calf training. I mean, I'll still incorporate it, but I don't have to prioritize my calves because they just grow. I've always had big calves ever since I was a kid, and I just have big ones. I mean, big calves, that's it. Arms and shoulders, on the other hand, are stubborn body parts, right? They've always lagged behind, and I've had to work really hard to make any progress whatsoever in arms and shoulders. Other muscle groups like chest responds fairly well for me. Back responds fairly well. Legs have responded fairly well. If we were to say if I have an exceptional body part, proportion-wise, it'd be calves. And, so that's just my body type. So I've noticed how I've had to change and prioritize my workouts, especially when I was competing in bodybuilding. So for me, it was always prioritizing arms and shoulders to try and create more balance and proportion. Now, in Andrew's case, he's noticing the back is lagging behind. So he definitely needs to prioritize the back. And there's a couple ways you go about this. One, you can simply try and do more volume per workout, but he's already doing 10 to 20 sets per workout, which, that's significant. So I wouldn't add in more per workout. I would add in extra workouts. So for the back, you could probably break it up. And maybe if like, for example, if you're currently training back once a week, start training it twice a week, and with those two workouts, you can do two different workouts. It doesn't have to be the same back routine each time. So I would prioritize different exercises, different movements, and try to create that complete training stimulation. And I actually did this with my own training with arms. So like, I wrote a book on it. It's called Blast Your Biceps. And I know several of the regulars and people who have been following my content for years probably have a copy of that. But the Blast Your Bicep program is an arm specialization program that's geared around that, I suppose, prioritizing the arms, which were my stubborn body part. And I know it is for a lot of people as well. But you could apply the same principles that are covered in that program to any stubborn body part. And one of the key things that we focused on was increasing the training volume. So taking your weaker body part and prioritizing it, but also you have to compensate because you have to take your stronger body parts and put them on a maintenance program, because you just can't simply keep adding in extra work. I mean, you can initially, but if you're already doing a lot, and I know just from chatting with Andrew he's been a regular of our chats for years, and we chat through Facebook Messenger. So I just know he's consistent with these workouts. He's doing a lot of volume as it is. So he's kind of at the upper threshold of what his body can recover from. So we have to rearrange your schedule and prioritize what needs the most work. And then the stronger body parts, we put them on a maintenance program. So all your other body parts that are responding well, cut the volume back. So if you're currently doing between 10 to 20 sets per muscle group, which is what he said he was doing, stronger ones, let's scale that back to 5 to 10 sets. We're going to literally cut your volume in half. And your weaker body part, your back, we're still going to keep the volume high, upwards of 20 sets per workout, but we're going to increase the volume, increase the frequency. So instead of just training it once a week, we're going to train it twice a week, and space that out so that you have a couple days of rest at least in between each workout. So how I would probably do that is, like, and I'm just thinking off the top of my head, I would plan this out now. Probably if you were training 4 or 5 days a week. Day one would be back. And then after that, we probably do like a push workout, chest, shoulders, triceps. Then you probably do a leg workout and like lower body, and then take a rest day, and then come back, train back. And then the other day, maybe do some, fill in the gaps, arms and shoulders or something like that. But make sure that your stronger body parts are getting 1 session, but your back is getting 2 sessions. And you could even vary it up so that one of those sessions is a heavy power type session, incorporating more heavy compound lifts like deadlifts and heavy rows and things like that. And then the other one will probably be a higher volume, more time under tension focused, more geared towards hypertrophy. So one is geared towards power, strength and power. One's geared towards time under tension and hypertrophy. And that would be a great way to maximize muscle stimulation in that stubborn area. And you'll want to stick it out for at least 3 months. Like, give it at least 3 months of prioritization, and you should be able to see some noticeable improvements then. And then, of course, you can adjust things accordingly based on how your body's responding. I mean, if it's responding well and you enjoy it, hey, keep doing it, right? Like, you don't have to stop after 3 months if you're seeing good results, but give it at least 3 months. That's what I'm saying. Like, the common mistake a lot of times with people try new things is they'll try it for a week or two and say, oh, that's not working. And then they'll go and jump and try something else. Like, it takes time for your body to adapt and grow in response to a training program. Like, you're not just going to do something for a week and then boom, you're going to see overnight results. Like, it doesn't happen that quick. It usually takes a while. Like, within the first month, you should see some noticeable progress, but to really see appreciable changes, it's going to take a few months, right, to really see that happen. So you got to be consistent with it and persevere through. But that's how I would go about it to prioritize a stubborn body part. And you could manipulate that however you see fit based on your individual situation. So anyone else listening to this, and maybe your stubborn body part is the chest. And how would you go about it? Well, you can prioritize your chest by increasing the frequency of the chest workouts and then putting the other stronger body parts on maintenance mode. All right, so let's see what else we got there. A lot of people joining in here. Good stuff. So let's see. We have Sean is joining us, and Sean has a question. He says, do you think machines are better for mass in regards to back training, since you can isolate, not worrying about stabilizing heavy weight like in rowing movements? Notice some gains with machines. It depends. I do like a lot of machine exercises. I'll be totally honest with that, because nowadays we are so fortunate that we have so many different machines to train all your different muscle groups. I mean, I know like a lot of the old school guys say, oh, free weights are supreme, like all the old school lifters lifted free weights and blah, blah, blah. I'm willing to bet if the guys back in the pumping iron days could go into a modern gym facility like we have now, a well-equipped gym with all the different machines and things like that, as well as all the different free weights, I'm willing to bet that they would do a lot more machine exercises, because the machines that we have available today, in 2023, moving into 2024, are way the heck better than the machines that were available back in the 60s and 70s, right? Not knocking the old school stuff, because I still love some of the old school machines. But the stuff we have today is generally a lot better. There's a lot more, science gone into it in terms of the positions and the body movements and the angles that you can hit and the variable resistance that's available, all that kind of stuff. So you're not at a deficit by using machines. I mean, machines have come a long way, and sometimes you can actually get better workouts with the machines, isolating the muscles because of the positions and the angles and things like that. And especially when it comes to back, because you're very limited to what you can do with back exercise. In fact, you can make this argument for other exercises as well. But like when you're lifting free weights, you're only lifting it up and down against gravity. Like that's pretty much it. But once you add in machines, now you can pull on all different angles and arcs and different ranges of motion, like a lat pull down, right? You can't do that with a free weight. Right? Different rowing variations, different fly movements, different pullover variations. Like this is a lot of these exercises are so much more effective with good machines than they are with free weights. Now, with that being said, do I still like using free weights? Absolutely. Like deadlifts, are solid free weight exercise that I don't think you can duplicate a deadlift with a machine, right? That's something that's that's a bread and butter exercise. That's a solid one that's going to stay in my routine. Some of the rowing moves, like a bent over barbell row, I mean, that's still a good exercise, even though we do have a lot of other rowing machines available. Those are still solid movements, right? You incorporate them. But as far as, completing the workout, I don't shy away from the machines. And the gym that I train at, Omega Health and Fitness, they just recently got a ton of new machines in. So there's going to be a lot of new variety added to my workouts in the near future, for sure. They actually recently they bought out a gym that went out of business and acquired all their equipment, and some of it is really good. So I'm looking forward to adding in some new variety, and hopefully you'll see some new workout videos on the channel incorporating some of these new machines. All right, let's see what else we got. Emma saying, can you treat us to a Christmas present and show us a bicep flex? Well, I don't know if that's much of a present. Right? Well, you can see my bicep flex. There we go. If that's all you want for Christmas, right? All I want for Christmas is 2 biceps, 2 biceps. This year, my son Harvey can literally sing that all I want for Christmas is my 2 front teeth, because this fall he lost his 2 front teeth and they're growing back, right? They're like his adult teeth are halfway down, so he can legitimately sing that song for Christmas, right? All I want for Christmas is my 2 front teeth. All right, who else we got there? Again, we have it's Albanian writing. It's Julio in English. Okay, so we have Julio joining in. Welcome, Julio. And he's from Greece. Awesome. Glad to I'm assuming it must be rather late or early, however you want to define it, over in Greece. But kudos to you for joining in. Much appreciated. And if you do have any questions that you would like to address, seeing you're up at this in the wee hours of the morning, feel free to type them into our video chat. We've got Baby Boomer Fitness. Says, do you believe insulin resistance could result with multiple meals a day? I've been a grazer for years and seem to be borderline diabetic. Should I cut back to fewer feedings per day? That's an interesting perspective, and there is some potential truth to that, especially if those multiple meals are high in carbohydrates, especially high in simple carbohydrates or carbohydrates that will have a direct impact on your blood sugar. So you got a couple options here. You can manipulate your meals so that they're not spiking insulin as much, meaning you're eating foods that are higher in fiber, higher in protein, higher in fats, and lower in carbohydrates. Or you could try and manipulate the frequency. And I think in a general term, especially if you're at a stage where, you're older, right? And I know you are, right? You're not a young 20-something-year-old, right? I know we've been chatting through Messenger and stuff like that. So I understand, like, you're a more mature lifter. And as you get older, your body doesn't need as much food, meaning like it doesn't need as much calories, but it does need more protein, right? So you need to prioritize the protein. So as long as you're meeting your protein intake needs, I would recommend seeing if you could scale back on the meal frequency a bit. And it doesn't have to be crazy. It doesn't have to be like this intermittent fasting protocol or anything like that. But like if you're currently having breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then having snacks in between each meal, so like you're literally having 5 or 6 feedings per day, probably just try having your 3 main meals, your breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and skip the in-between meal snacks and see how that works for you. And then with those meals, you could have more substantial meals and making sure that you're getting substantial servings of protein in there. I think that could certainly help when it comes to managing your insulin. And even just being more aware of your food choices in general, right? Because even though I'm sure, you're exercising, you're eating healthy and all, like everyone says that I work out, I eat right, I exercise, blah, blah, but we could do better, right? We could all do better, me included, right? I'm not pointing the fingers at anybody, because if I'm pointing a finger at you, I got 3 more pointing back at me, right? So I could be better as well. We could all be better with this. And this is something that I really prioritize when I'm working with people one-on-one within the Muscle After 40 Blueprint program, is how can we optimize your nutrition? And some of the key things we focus on: prioritizing protein, right? That has to be in there, especially as you're getting older. Protein is critical because you need to prevent sarcopenia, which is age-related muscle loss. And one of the ways to do that is by providing adequate protein to help your body rebuild muscle tissue. Next one, prioritizing fibrous vegetables. That is a big one. Like, most people are not eating enough fibrous vegetables in their diets. And like, I don't count vegetables as in, oh, I eat potatoes, or I eat grain products and stuff like that. Like, that's not vegetables. I'm talking about the fibrous vegetables. Fibrous vegetables are very freaking good because, one, they're not going to spike your insulin, but they provide your body with the fiber and the phytochemicals and the nutrients, and your body needs that fiber, right? All the bacteria in your guts, like gut health, needs that fiber from the fibrous vegetables because that's what it feeds on. And if you're not eating enough fibrous vegetables, that's when people often develop gut issues. All these gut health things, the leaky gut syndrome, all that kind of stuff. A lot of the root cause is just not getting enough of those natural unprocessed foods, i.e. the fibrous vegetables, because that's what those good healthy bacteria feed on, and that's what promotes healthy gut health. So making sure that you're getting adequate vegetables. And this is my go-to. Like, every meal, there's got to be a serving of protein, there's got to be a serving of vegetables. Like, that's the non-negotiable right there. What happens after that, it will depend on my activity level and my hunger level and what I actually need to fuel that workout or that whatever I'm doing that day. But the two non-negotiables is the protein and veggies. That gets in there hands down. And if you're doing that, that can certainly go a long way to managing your insulin levels. But this is a huge topic. Like, this is something I'm glad you're aware of it now and you can start taking actions. But if you want some help with this, like, feel free to reach out to me, because there's so much we could unpack here. Like, I could literally take up the whole hour-long chat just talking about this alone. But instead of doing that, I would like to address other questions and topics as well. So if you want to, discuss different nutritional strategies to help manage that, feel free to reach out to me. Just drop me a message over on Facebook or, email me, either one. Contact information's in the description below this video, and we can chat and strategize an action plan for you. All right, so let's see. Robert is joining us. Robert's a regular to our video chats as well. He says, I'm on my 3rd week of upper lower body workout and I'm noticing a good difference. Congrats. Awesome. Good for you. Okay. And it usually takes a few weeks to start to notice some progress, but as you continue on, like, that progress is just going to compound. But it takes a while for the changes to happen. And this is something I always mentioned before. Like, whenever you start a new program, your body has to adapt to that new training stimulation. As it adapts, it's going to grow. You're going to see some progress. You're going to get bigger and stronger and more mobile and whatever it is you're training for. And then eventually it's going to hit a plateau, right? It will go through that phase: adapt, grow, plateau. But that, before it actually stops working, when you start to hit that plateau, I mean, that could take several weeks or even several months in some cases. So ride that wave of momentum for as long as you're seeing good results from it, and as long as you're enjoying it. All right, Emma saying, I don't believe that your arms lag behind. You've always had huge biceps. You're too kind. I appreciate that, but they have certainly lagged behind. If you see some of the pictures of me, like back when I did my first bodybuilding show, I talk about this in the Blast Your Biceps program, like show some of those early pictures, and I had what I refer to as the spaghetti noodle arm syndrome, because they were noticeably skinnier than all my other body parts, right? Noticeably. And I had to bust my arms, if you will. I was going to say bust my ass, but I didn't need problems. I didn't have problems growing my ass. I had to bust my arms in order to build big arms. Yeah. So, but I appreciate the comment nonetheless. But this is after 30 years of work, and they're still by no means huge. Like, I took my measurements the other day, and like, I'm not a big guy. Like, I'm sub 200 pounds, and my arms, they measure like literally just like 16 inches. So I'm not massive by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, vice versa, my calves are like 19 inches. So ideally, in the perfect proportion, your arms, your biceps, and your calves and your neck should be the same measurement, or at least close to it, right? That's That's kind of like how you would judge proportion. So in my case, calves are way bigger, bigger than my biceps and bigger than my neck. So it goes in calves, neck, arms in order of biggest to smallest for me. So ideally, my arms have a far way to go in order to be in proper proportion. But you know what? They may never be in proper proportion. You just kind of make the best of what you have, but just sharing that. All right, we have Richard. He's part of our Muscle After 40 Blueprint program as well, making some awesome progress. He says, suggestions for doing a light, medium, heavy day workouts for full body workouts. What should the sets, weights, reps be for those? All right, that's a lengthy question there, but I will try and address it the best that I can. For me, based on that, I would consider heavy something that you're doing for 5 repetitions. Like if you're getting about 5 reps per set, that's heavy. And I mean like hitting muscular failure or close to muscular failure at 5 reps. And again, my definition of failure is the point where your form starts to break down. It's not the point at which you can't move the weight at all. So, your form will probably start to break down around the 5th rep. But if you started to cheat, use momentum or body English, whatever you want to call it, or shorten the range of motion, you could probably continue on, get a couple extra reps. I wouldn't bother with that, because once the form breaks down, you start getting into sloppy form, the risk of injury goes up exponentially. The potential benefit doesn't really match the risk to reward ratio. So I always stop my sets once the form starts to break down. And when I'm working with people one-on-one, that's soon as I see them struggling and then the form starts to break, I say, stop the set, right? It's not worth to push beyond that. The little bit of extra muscle stimulation you get is not worth the risk of an injury, because, okay, maybe you would maximize and get a minuscule bit more growth if you pushed, beyond failure. But then if you push beyond failure and end up pulling, tearing, or injuring yourself, that's going to set you back way more than whatever potential growth you got from it, right? So I'm a stickler for injury prevention, because I knowing from experience, that's the only thing that's going to set you back in terms of your progress. But getting back to your question here, heavy would be 5 reps per set. Medium is in that 10 rep range. So when I say 10 rep range, it could be as low as 8 to as high as 12. So 10 being the sweet spot. If you can do more than 12, that's getting into the light. That's not medium. And if you're doing less than 8, that's getting into the heavy. It's not medium. So medium is in that 10 rep range. And light would be 15 plus. So if you're looking at your repetitions, heavy is 5, medium's 10, light's 15 plus. As far as the sets and all that, that's really going to depend on your work capacity and what it is you're trying to do. But I would recommend doing at least 2 working sets for each exercise, right? At least 2. If you want to do more, that's fine. And as far as the progressively heavier warm-ups, that's really up to you. And this depends on what you need, because the stronger you get, the more warm-up sets you're going to need. And I'll give you an analogy to kind of make sense of this. Like, let's say we're a novice lifter who can deadlift 100 pounds. They're probably not going to need many warm-up sets to get up to 100 pounds, their max working weight. But if you take an advanced lifter who can deadlift 500 pounds, he's probably going to need a lot of warm-up sets to work up to 500 pounds. Like, he's not just like a novice might take 50 pounds, 75, and then go right to 100. No big deal. But an advanced lifter is not going to take those same jumps. They're going to do many more progressively heavier warm-up sets to get their body in the groove of doing that exercise. So the stronger you are, the more weight you're lifting, the more warm-up sets you need to get up to that top working weight. All right, so that's why I don't give hard set recommendations when it comes to sets, because it really depends on your individual strength level and also your mobility. Like if you're feeling extra tight and stiff and sore, do more warm-up sets, right? Don't risk injury by shortcutting the warm-up sets. Like, I would err on more warm-up sets than less. But when it comes to the actual work sets, you want to do at least 2 good work sets, right, to make sure that you're getting maximum muscle stimulation. What else we got there? Jose is joining us. Says Merry Christmas. Thank you for liking my squat video yesterday. You're welcome, and Merry Christmas to you as well. Question: do you count coffee, tea, protein shakes, he says, as part of your water intake? It's you can, like, honestly, I don't measure my water intake. Like, I mean, I just drink until I am to quench my thirst, and I normally have a water bottle with me at all times. In fact, I have one right here, and I should be bringing it out actually. All right. Speaking of water, thanks for reminding me. But I don't measure it. I just drink until I make sure that I'm not thirsty. That's my cue for water consumption and hydration. Drink before you're thirsty, because by the time you are thirsty and you're like, man, I'm parched, I really need to have a drink, you're already dehydrated. So try to stay ahead of the thirst. And the easiest way to do that is just have water with you handy wherever you go and sip it throughout the day. And then my cue that I use, right? My cue when I go to the loo is just look at the color of your pee. If it's dark yellow, that's not a good sign. That means you're dehydrated. If it's a light yellow or clear, you're probably doing pretty good. So if you want to count your coffee and tea and all that, that's fine. But again, just make sure that you're staying ahead of your thirst curve. Like, don't let yourself get dehydrated. And I would try and get a lot of pure water in there as well, because coffee and tea are not as hydrating because of the caffeine. It acts as a natural diuretic. So if you're quenching your thirst with caffeinated beverages, it's kind of counterintuitive, because a lot of times the water you consume you're going to actually pee out more due to the diuretic effect of the caffeine that's in those drinks. Protein shakes is a little different, right? But again, personally, I would make sure that you're getting in adequate water in there along with that. But as again, to directly answer your question, do I count it towards my water intake? Well, I guess I do, but I don't measure my water intake. So I have no idea. Like, I'm always drinking water throughout the day, and I will drink more on the days that I'm more active, right? So like if I'm going out for a big bike ride, or especially if it's warm and it's hot out and I'm sweating a lot, I'm going to be slamming back water. I mean, like, I'll probably sometimes go through a bottle an hour, on a big bike ride. So, I mean, on those days, I'm going to be consuming way more than on a day when it's a rest day. So, I let the intake fluctuate based on my activity levels and my needs for that day. Steve is joining us. He says, I like to do a lot of various exercises, often so many, I only get 2 sets per exercise. I try to beat my previous weight reps each time. Do you think I'm overcomplicating things? Yes and no. All right. I'm going to unpack this one. First off, Steve has made amazing progress. Like, he's a regular over on our Total Fitness Bodybuilding Facebook group, and he regularly posts his progress pictures, which kudos to you. I respect that. And I thank you for sharing and inspiring the group, because Steve has made an amazing progress. Like, he's got a great physique, lean, muscular, well-balanced, and like he's a meticulous to detail. Like, he wants to make sure his body's in balance and proportion, and he's in great shape. And obviously what you're doing is working. So I'm not going to say don't do it, because it is working. But at the same time, you can sometimes overcomplicate things by trying to do too much. And you may be able to make great progress with an abbreviated workout with a select few exercises. All right. So it's not that one is right or wrong or good or bad. It's what's working for you now. So like, if what you're doing, a lot of different exercises, you just do a little bit of a lot. If that's working for you, you're enjoying it, you're seeing gains, hey, keep doing it, right? Don't if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? I'll use that analogy. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if you do hit a plateau, which chances are you will eventually, everybody does, then my next advice would be to simplify the program and focus on a few key exercises and get really strong and good at those few key exercises. And this is something that I've done in the past. Like, I remember going through phases where some of the best gains that I remember making, especially in terms of strength and just sheer muscle size, was following very simple programs, like the 20 rep squat program. Right? That's a very simple program. It literally had, we did squats, dips, pulls, like four or five exercises total. That was it. And you do that program 3 times a week. And I ended up doing it for, I believe it was 8 weeks, and made some amazing progress with that one. If, do I have a copy of that handy? 20 rep squat program. I've got articles up on my website about it, but I had the book there somewhere too. I'm just curious to see if I still have it. Oh yeah, here it is. This is an old one. Super squats. This one was, when's the copyright? This was made by Iron Mind, copyright 1989. But the original program, like the idea of 20 rep squats, like this was literally around for a long time before that. Like the idea of 20 rep squats, if I'm not mistaken, probably like pushing like 100 years in the iron game. Could be wrong on that, but it's been around for quite a while. Like it was published back in the 60s and stuff, but I'm just trying to think. I got myself curious now. Okay, yeah, I think the very first reference of it, Joseph Curtis Hayes, back in the 30s. Okay, so not quite 100 years, but getting pretty darn close to it. Back in the 30s, he was the guy who kind of made that 20 rep squat program famous. But super squats, it's a quick read. Like it's only how much? 100 pages, little over 100-page book. So it's a quick read, but it's a fun read. And for those of you who want a bit of iron game history, I'd highly recommend it. And I'm sure if you go Amazon it or Google or whatever, you'll be able to find a copy. But like, that's a very simple program that I followed and made amazing progress with. Other times I've done some abbreviated powerlifting routines where I just did like squat, bench, deadlift, overhead presses, and maybe a couple auxiliary exercises, for rare delts and core and stuff, and just did that, literally a half a dozen exercises, and just stuck to that for several months. Like basically just focus on progressive overload. And when I say progressive overload, I had it set up for small gains where I was doing that squat, bench, deadlift program. Every workout, I tried to add a pound to each exercise. And I had it set up with fractional weight plates where I'd literally just go up by 1 pound and let it build up week by week by week by week. And then, I mean, you can make amazing gains by just having a simple program with progressive overload and consistency. So that works as well. So bottom line is, it all works, like everything works, but nothing works forever, right? That's a good thing to keep in the back of your mind when it comes to your workouts. Everything works. Like you go to the gym and you see someone doing some 20 sets per body part, 6 days a week, blah, 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 blah. That works, right? Then you go see someone else who's doing a 1 set to failure, high intensity, low volume. That works, right? They could be chalk and cheese, totally different programs, but they all work, but they don't work forever. Eventually, you're going to adapt, grow, and plateau. Once you plateau, then you want to change it up and try something else. And then in the changing, in order to get the maximum bang for your buck, the maximum muscle stimulation from your new program is it should be unique muscle stimulation from what you were doing previously. So, for example, if you did a high volume program and then switched to a high intensity program, you would see amazing gains because it's totally unique muscle stimulation. Vice versa, if you're always doing low volume, high intensity programs, and then you switch to high volume, you would see amazing gains because now that's totally unique muscle stimulation. And in your situation, you're doing a lot of different exercises for a very low volume each. Once that starts to plateau for you, if you switch to an abbreviated program of a select few exercises, but you really prioritize and focus and maximize those few exercises, you'll probably see amazing gains because, again, it's unique muscle stimulation from what your body's currently accustomed to. And another benefit of doing fewer exercises is you really master those exercises. Like you master the technique and the mind-muscle connection and the efficiency. And the more repetitions you do, the more you do those exercises over and over again, you really fine-tune that motor unit recruitment. So you'll get really good at maximizing muscle strength and stimulation in those few exercises. Whereas if you're spreading yourself thin across a whole bunch, you're like a jack of all exercises, but a master of none, if that makes sense. Whereas when you focus on a few, you can really master those movements and kind of get it on that subconscious internal level where you can just maximize it. And you see that with Like you watch like a seasoned power lifter or someone who's been doing this for years, or a weightlifter, like their core lifts, it's they're just they're in the zone, like they're on, it's a subconscious, like they don't have to consciously think about it, they just do it, right? Like you watch an Olympic lifter, for example, on the platform doing a clean and jerk or a snatch or something like that. Like they're not consciously thinking about it. Like it's ingrained on the subconscious level, but their technique is flawless because they've just done thousands and thousands of repetitions of that, and they've practiced it so much it's just ingrained in them on the cellular level to do that exercise and do it to the best of their ability. Right. So that's some of the benefits you can get when you do an abbreviated program and really prioritize just a few movements. All right, moving on. Neil's joining us. Welcome, Neil. This is just tuning in while working out. And Merry Christmas in advance. Well, good. Hopefully you have a good workout. Jerry's saying I couldn't join. We're having an event this evening, getting ready for that. The good news is I had an awesome workout today after work. Well, congrats on the awesome workout. And obviously you joined in enough to comment and say you couldn't join, but you can always catch the replay. The replay is going to be posted up afterwards. As soon as this done, as soon as this video chat's over, the replay will be available. And Jerry is also a member of our Muscle After 40 Blueprint program. Came on board with it just recently, so kudos to you. And we have the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission joining us. Hello from the U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission Toy Testing Lab. I wonder if Santa Claus scrutinized under that, the toy testing lab. He says, I have a question. Does wall sitting actually help your gut? Your guts or your glutes? I'm wondering. Maybe he's meaning glutes, because usually people would do a wall sit for their glutes, not necessarily their gut. But a wall sit is basically a static squat, right? I mean, just if you're not familiar with what it is, just Google search wall sit. It's a freaking hard exercise. So, I mean, yeah, I mean, it's anything you do consistently and train in a progressive fashion is going to help. I mean, it's going to work the legs, it's going to work the glutes, and all those muscles, like the entire lower body is going to come into play. I mean, to a degree, it might even work your core, but in a way, the core is not as dominant as the lower body when you're doing a wall sit. I haven't really prioritized it in years. Like back when I was doing martial arts, I did a lot of that type of exercise. And in fact, we would sometimes do wall sits, but our main exercise, especially anyone with a martial arts background would be familiar, the horse stance. And that was part of our training. Like you would have to hold the horse stance, and the further up you got, the higher belt rankings, the longer you had to hold your horse stance. And that is downright brutal. It's basically like a static contraction squat, which sounds simple, and then you just hold it initially and like, oh, this is nothing. But after a few minutes, you're shaking and quivering and you're feeling it, right? So it's very deceptive and it compounds quickly, right? So it's basically just a static contraction squat. And yeah, it's a great exercise. I mean, for people who are, for example, like if you're training at home and you don't have much in the way of equipment, things like this is a great way to make, take advantage of what you have available. Right? I mean, I know some people do it at the gym, but usually, more often than not, if people are at the gym, they're going to take advantage of the equipment they have at the gym. But sometimes these simple moves, simple body weight exercises like that, they can be just as, if not more effective than some of the machine exercises that we have available. Okay, he's saying here, like, does wall sitting actually work? I used it and my stomach pain went away, but when I used other methods, it didn't work. I don't know what you mean by stomach pain indirectly, but hey, if it's working, you're getting results from it, who might argue? If it works, keep doing it. That's interesting. I don't know what you mean by stomach pain. Like, is it stomach pain in terms of indigestion, gas, bloating, diarrhea, something that you'd take Pepto-Bismol for, or is it stomach pain from like an injury or something? But either way, if you're getting results from it, kudos, keep going. Let's see what else we got. Is an hour of steady state cardio too much? Hell no. And it's all relative. Actually, let me unpack that better than just saying no. It could be if you've never exercised before and you're totally sedentary and you just like New Year's resolution is just around the corner, and there's going to be a lot of people joining the gym or starting the whole fitness kick who haven't exercised in weeks or months or maybe even years. And if they just jump from 0 to start doing an hour all in one go, yeah, that's probably too much, right? You want to build it up slowly and gradually and progressively. But for someone who is in great shape, an hour is not much at all, right? Like if you look at an elite level endurance athlete, an hour is like a short active recovery session. And they're probably doing way more than that, especially someone who's training for high volume cardiovascular endurance events, like someone who's training for a marathon or a cyclist or a triathlete or something like that. An hour of cardio is nothing, right? So, but again, it's all relative to the individual and their individual fitness level. But for me, no, an hour of cardio, that would be an easy active recovery session. Like a lot of times when I go for big rides on the weekend, like they could be long. Like literally last weekend, I went for a 7-hour bike ride, right? That's not 7 hours total time. That's 7 hours of moving time. The total time was actually more than that. That's 7 hours of actual moving, because the way my bike computer works, as soon as you stop, the computer pauses. So you don't get credit for waiting at a red light, right? That doesn't count towards your moving time. You only get credit for when you're actually moving. So I did a ride last weekend for over 7 hours, right? And I loved it. I mean, I've built myself up to that over a prolonged period of time. Right? It's not something I just woke up one day and said, hey, I think I'm going to go do 7 hours of cardio today. No, it's something I built up to over the course of, literally several years. But, to me, that's a lot. But an hour? No, that's I do that before breakfast. All right, what else we got there? Josh is joining us. He says, having a hard time getting out of the all or nothing trap, especially when following a progressive overload compound program. How do I tell myself that easier workouts are okay when necessary? You've already answered your own question. Like you know this. So like me trying to justify it, I don't know. It's something. Let me share how I got out of the all or nothing trap, and I'm still a bit guilty of falling into the all or nothing trap. And for those of you who are wondering what all or nothing trap is, it's literally what the term in A talks about. It's you're either all in, like I got to have the perfect program, I got to be 100%, I got to be strict, I got to go pedal to the metal, just go all in. Or if I'm not going all in, I'm not perfect, everything's not, all my ducks are not in a row, then screw it, I'm not going to do anything, right? So it's like all or nothing. And that's the way most people approach their fitness and nutrition, right? Like they procrastinate even starting or doing anything because, well, it's not going to be perfect. And what's the point of doing anything if it's not perfect, right? If you can't do it right, don't do it at all. And I understand, and like it's coming from a good intention, but it's a flawed approach because it's never going to be perfect. And if it is perfect, it's never going to be perfect for long. The excrement is always going to hit the fan, and something's always going to derail you. Like there's always going to be challenges. There's always going to be obstacles. There's always going to be something happening that's going to throw off your so-called perfect plan. When that happens, does it mean you say, screw it, I'm not doing anything? No, you make the best of the situation and you do something's better than nothing, right? So another way that I like to look at this is instead of trying to be all in, right? You want to be good enough, but good enough consistently. Because this all or nothing trap, it's, okay, I'm perfect, but I'm not consistently perfect, and nobody is. So, okay, I might be perfect for a couple weeks, or I might be perfect for a couple months even, or something like that. Like if you're really strict, and I use my background as an example, like when I used to get ready for a bodybuilding show, I would try and be quote unquote perfect or all in for my contest prep. So say for the last 3 months before a bodybuilding show, it was like, okay, I'm not skipping workouts. I'm not having cheat meals, right? I'm hitting the gym 6 days a week. I'm doing cardio 2 hours a day minimum, right? And boom, boom, boom. Like it was just, I'm not letting anything derail it. Like I put on my blinders And I would say no to everything else, like no to restaurants, no to social get-togethers, no to family and friends and whatever. Like they say, oh, it's grandmother's 80th birthday. Are you going to come and celebrate her birthday with her? I say, no, the hell with grandmother. I'm doing my contest prep. Like, that's how selfish it was. Like, I would really, you put the blinders on and you say, like, the hell with everybody else. I'm all in. I'm just focusing on this. And yeah, you can do that for the short term, right? It's not healthy. It's not sustainable. And you're certainly not going to make any friends doing it, but you can do it for the short term. But the way it was is, as soon as that contest was over, like, I trained for the contest date, and as soon as that deadline was there and the show was done, the placings were announced and the pictures were taken and the dust settled, then it was like, I can't wait to get back to normal again. So like, I'd scrap it, and then I'd go back to my old habits, and then start binge eating on all the food that I was depriving myself of. And I say, I've been doing 2 hours of cardio for the last 12 weeks every day. I don't want to do any cardio now because I'm sick of it. So I go from all to nothing. And then months of dieting and suffering it out to lose the weight and get in shape. And then only a few weeks of falling off the rails to gain it all back. So that's the problem with this all or nothing, is it's not sustainable. Sure, you make some great progress while you're all in, but then as soon as you fall into the nothing, it's all like a fart in the wind. It's gone, right? So I would rather you be good enough and good enough consistently, so that the progress you make, even though it's not perfect and it's slower than when everything is all in, it's progress that you can keep and sustain. So instead of being occasionally great, you want to be consistently good, right? And, to kind of wrap this into another analogy, I would much rather you have a 7 out of 10 program in terms of consistency and perfectness, if you will. Like, I would rather your diet be 7 out of 10, your workouts be 7 out of 10, and you do that for the rest of your life, versus having a 10 out of 10 diet or a 10 out of 10 program and only be able to do it for a few months. And then you fall in, and then you have a 0 out of 10 after that. Like, 7 out of 10 consistently is going to outproduce a 10 out of 10 that's only done for a few months. So good enough, but good enough consistently. And that's the secret. Like, when you look at people who really make this a lifestyle and have been doing it, not just for a few weeks or a few months, but have been doing it year after year, decade after decade, and you're looking at them and like, Jesus, like, this guy's in crazy shape, and like, he's in his 50s, 60s, 70s or whatever, and he's still in better shape than people half his age. It's because he's been good enough and good enough consistently, right? There hasn't been this off time where he's, burnt himself out in the short term and then had to take, a crap ton of time off and then lose all the progress again. It's just plugging away at it day after day, a little bit, right? But it's done in bite-sized chunks, manageable, and done in such a way that you actually enjoy the process. Because that's another problem with the all or nothing approach, is when you're all in, you're suffering it out and you're not enjoying it. You're burning yourself out. Like, imagine trying to sustain, 14-hour work days, right? Like, oh, I work 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, 52 weeks of the year. Like, how long are you going to stick with that before you take a long walk off a short bridge? Like, you might be able to do it for the short term, if you got some deadlines or some projects that you want to complete or something that's a short-term thing, but you're not going to do it for the rest of your life. Like, life would not be worth living if you're just suffering all the time. You have to enjoy the process. And that's where this good enough, but good enough consistently idea comes in. Is because it's good enough that you're making progress, but it's not crazy, that so you can still enjoy it. You can still enjoy your life. And that's the whole principle behind the Muscle After 40 blueprint. And I mean, we have a whole system in place teaching people how to do this. And it's, I'm just scraping the top of the iceberg here, but like, this is something that we have regular conversations with. I mean, this is an ongoing thing. It's not something like I can snap my fingers and, turn this off. Like, this is something, even for people who've been going through the program for several weeks, like, they still have those relapses, and they gotta, as my friend Mike Brown says, there's been multiple times where you've talked me off the ledge, right? Because he's had that all or nothing mentality. We have to learn to let that go and just be good enough and good enough consistently. So again, if you want to work on this more, reach out to me. Like, we can have a chat and I can share some of the stuff that we're doing. Josen says, I have a question. When is the best time to work out? When is the best time to work out? whenever it fits your schedule, the best workout is the one you do, whether it's morning, noon, or night. All right. So honestly, you can make it work either way. I've seen guys who've worked out in the morning, got great results. I've seen guys who work out midday, get great results. I've seen guys who work out in the evening, get great results. And I've personally done it all. You know, for several years, I used to be a night owl and doing the evening workouts, and I made that work. But now I prefer morning workouts, and that's what's working best for me in my schedule. So there is no best time. It's what works best for you and your schedule. Now, with that being said, like that's the big answer right there. I'm going to give you another answer that is probably the one you're looking for to help optimize it. If possible, I would recommend working out in the morning. If you can do it, I would recommend doing it earlier in the day. And there's a couple reasons for that. One, you're going to have higher levels of energy. You're going to be more motivated and less likely to blow the workout off if you do it early in the day. Because if you're saying, oh, I'm going to get that workout done later in the day, I'm going to do it after work, or I'm going to do it after supper, or after the kids go to bed, or whatever, and the workout gets pushed later in the day, guess what happens late in the day? You get tired. As you get tired, your willpower drops, your energy, your enthusiasm, your motivation drops, right? When you have high energy and you're well rested, you have high levels of willpower, you have high levels of energy, and you're never going to be as well rested as you are first thing in the morning after a decent night's sleep, right? So that's why early in the day, generally your willpower is higher, your energy is higher. So that's a big plus there. Another one is you can get it done and cross it off the to-do list before you get distracted with all your other chores and errands and responsibilities and whatever else you got on your plate. Because again, let's say you have the best of intentions, I'm going to work out tonight after dinner, right? That's your plan. And then you go to work and you have a busy day at work and you got to work overtime. And then when you come home, you're tired and you're exhausted. And then the wife says, well, geez, you got to go to the grocery store and you got to pick up this and that and the other thing. And you got to drop the kids off to their whatever. And then, and also do this on the way home. And don't forget to check the mail and blah, blah, blah. And then by the time you cross off all your errands and chores and to-do lists and you get home, you're like, I'm exhausted. Like the last thing I want to do now is go work out. And you're like, screw it. I'll do it tomorrow. Right. And then if your plan is to do your workout later in the day tomorrow and the same thing happens, then you say, screw it. I'll start again on Monday. So it's so much easier to blow off the workouts when they're later in the day. But if they're early in the day, you wake up, first thing you do, you get your workout done, right? Before you even think about work, chores, responsibilities, or satisfying whatever to-do list that your wife wants you to do. And I'm going to go to the gym, or I'm going to go do a home workout, or whatever it is that you do. Like you get the exercise crossed off the to-do list, number one. Once it's done, it's in the bank, right? The workout is in the bank. It's said, it's done, it's crossed off the list. Then regardless of how busy you get throughout the rest of the day, your workout's done, right? It's secure. You've reaped the benefits of that workout. And then you can tackle all the rest of your chores and errands and responsibilities and whatever else you got on the go. So that is what I think is the best time. But I know that's not always possible for some people, because like some of my coaching students, for example, got crazy work schedules where like they got to get up in the wee hours of the morning and, they had to start work at 6 a.m. or something like that. So, I mean, like if you got to start work at 6 a.m., like literally be in the building at 6 a.m., like, what are you going to do? get up at 1 o'clock in the morning? Or it's like, no, it's sometimes it's not feasible if your workout is or your job responsibility is so early. So in those situations, you may have to do it, midday or later, or on your lunch break or whatever. But again, if you can, get it done early. That's what I would recommend. All right, what else we got? We have Baby Boomer Fitness sponsored the with the super chat. Much appreciated, my friend. Thank you for doing that. All right, you are too kind. All right, Merry Christmas to you as well. What else we got there, guys? Let's see. Some other questions. I'm going to answer a couple more before we clue it up. We have Marcus joining us from Sweden. Glad to have you joining. And again, it must be after midnight over there in Sweden. Time to be going to bed. Emma saying there's a lot of talk online about the difference in aesthetics between long and short head biceps. What type do you have, and how do you make the bicep peak look so big when you flex? Personally, I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, I guess. Like I don't really have a high peaked bicep, but I don't have the longest bicep. And a good analogy of this, I'm just going to share one. In fact, let me see if I can pop this up here. I like to compare Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sergio Oliva back in the day, the old schoolers, because Arnold had high peaked baseball biceps and Sergio had the longer, flatter biceps. Now, both guys had huge, massive biceps, but totally different insertions, and it made a difference. I'm just doing a Google search here. See if this is the image that I'm looking for. It's an old picture, but a good one nonetheless. Second, guys. Actually, I'm going to go back to my Google images there. Okay. I'm going to try to share my screen, see if you can, just to demonstrate the point that I'm trying to make here. Share screen, share right here. So let's see. Is that coming through on your end? Hopefully it is. All right. I'm going to make this bigger, and I'm going to take away your question there. This picture of Arnold and Sergio, like Arnold's biceps are shorter and higher peaked. I know it's not a greatest picture here, but again, I can't make it any bigger. That's as big as it goes on my computer. And Sergio's are longer and flatter, right? Now, both got amazing biceps, amazing arm development. I mean, as far as the arm circumference, they're very similar, but Arnold's just looks more impressive because of that shorter bicep and the higher peak, whereas Sergio's is a longer, flatter bicep. And there's nothing you can do to change that. That's a genetic thing. Like it depends on the tendon insertions, right? There's really nothing you can do to change that naturally, not without cosmetic surgery or site enhancement oils, which, I don't even want to get into that topic. But genetically, training wise, it's like you can't change it. That's just your natural body shape, right? In my case, I actually have a partial tendon tear in my left bicep. So it made my left bicep shorter, which kind of made it have a better peak because of that. But I'm not happy with it because my bicep's not as strong as it used to be either because of that partial tear. So this was something like I did that back in 2010. I tore my left bicep. And it's never been the same since. It's shorter than the right, but when I pose it a certain way or under the right lighting, it looks like it's a higher peak now because the muscle is shorter, and it doesn't go all the way to the elbow. But that's just my situation. But again, there's really nothing you can do. It's a genetic thing, right? Let's see what else we got there. I lost my place. Just give me a second, folks, where I was sharing my screen. I lost my place in the chat. Alex is saying, thanks for continuing to do this. You're very welcome. And he says, what's your recommendation for protein intake? 1 gram per pound of body weight. That's a darn good recommendation, but I like to add in an extra twist on that. 1 gram of protein per pound of your ideal body weight. So whatever it is you want to weigh. And the reason why I do that is because for someone who's skinny and trying to gain muscular body weight, eating more will just increase their caloric intake more, and it'll provide the raw materials their body needs to build muscle tissue. So let's just say you're 180 pounds and your goal is to be 200 pounds. Again, I'm just using these numbers as examples, right? Doesn't mean that that's your weight or your goal. If you're 180 pounds and you want to weigh 200, then strive for 200 grams of protein per day. That will certainly put you in a positive nitrogen balance for stimulating maximum muscle growth. Vice versa, if you're 250 pounds and your goal is to weigh 200, then eat 200 grams of protein a day, and that's less than your body weight. But again, you're trying to lose weight. So you don't need to match your protein intake for fat mass. Like if you're carrying an extra 50 plus pounds of body fat, you don't need to try and eat according to that weight. You eat according to your ideal weight. So that's what I recommend. And again, it is just a recommendation. It's not a hard set in stone rule. Like some days you'll eat more, some days you'll eat less, right? Like there will be natural fluctuation. So even if you're striving for 200 grams of protein a day, some days you might only hit 170 grams. Other days you might hit 220 grams, and everything in between. It's going to be up and down, up and down, up and down. But as long as you're in the ballpark, you're approximately like you're plus or minus 10% or so, you'll make it work. Like as long as you're good enough, but good enough consistently, that's all that matters. You don't have to stress yourself out over trying to be perfect, right? Because someone with this all or nothing mindset would say, well, oh, if I can't hit 200 protein per day, well, screw it. I can't follow this bodybuilding diet stuff. This is crap. I'm just going to go to McDonald's and get myself a burger and fries and wash it down with a milkshake. Screw this, right? Because I can't be all in, so I'm going to go the total opposite extreme. I'm going to go nothing. If you can't meet your protein one day, who gives a shit, right? Just make up for it the next day. It's not a big deal. As long as you're good enough and good enough consistently, and you have more days moving in the right direction than you have days moving in the wrong direction, you can still make this work. So it's just a guideline, right? It's not something to create more stress in your life. It's a target to shoot for. Let's see what else we got there. Man from Earth, please advise. Okay, I will. Can't reduce calories anymore and afraid of overtraining. Many, many thanks. Okay. Okay, another question here. I've lost 60 pounds and hit a super plateau. I work out 5 days for 3 hours each and consume 2,100 calories. Can't reduce calories, afraid of injury if I increase training even more. Please advise. All right, this helps to add context to it, right? This should have been the first question here. First off, congrats on losing 60 pounds. That is a huge, huge accomplishment. And you're kind of burning the candle at both ends, right? 5 days a week, 3 hours a workout. I mean, so you're averaging 15 hours of exercise. Like that's up there. Yeah, I totally agree. Like for most people to try and go beyond 15 hours of exercise a week is not feasible or practical. And depending on your recovery, it's probably not possible either. So yeah, you're kind of maxing things out. What I would recommend in this situation is to actually go on a diet break, if you will. I'm not saying to start going to McDonald's and burgers and fries and milkshakes or none of that stuff. I'm not suggesting that, but just ease up the pressure. Like, don't be so strict on keeping the calories low, and don't be so strict on trying to get in those 3 hours of exercise each day. Probably go on an active recovery phase for a while, just to give your body, mind, and everything else a break. So you learn to maintain. This is something a lot of people, nobody talks about it because maintaining is not sexy, but learn to maintain your weight at this new level. So you've lost 60 pounds. Instead of trying to stress, oh, I got to lose another whatever more, say, you know what? I'm just going to sustain this weight loss, and I'm going to get comfortable, and I'm going to see how little can I do and still maintain my weight. I'm going to see, try and just go through an active recovery phase. So probably scale back to 3 workouts a week. Or cut back the volume. I mean, if you like the habit of regular exercise, keep that going. But, instead of 3 hours, hey, how about we scale it back to an hour, right? Just kind of go through a maintenance program. And the same with your eating. Like, eat until you're comfortably full. So, maybe that is bumping the calories up to around 2,500 or something like that. So you don't feel like you're leaving the table hungry. And if you do that, and maybe it'll take a few weeks or even maybe for a couple months, but just go through this phase where you're letting your body stabilize at this new weight and let things return to normal. Because when you're in a calorie deficit and when you're burning the candle at both ends and you're overtraining like that, you create an imbalance in your body where it's not optimizing your hormones. Your body kind of literally goes into that survival state. Very often with low calories, it suppresses your natural anabolic hormones, and you're literally shutting your body down. Like it's getting to the point saying we're protecting it. We're slowing down the metabolism. We're conserving things because we don't want you to cause any more damage, right? Like the body is always in that survival mode. Like it's protecting itself. And very often, if this was a female, for example, going through this, a prime example of when women are doing too much, they stop their menstrual cycle, because that's like a non-essential thing that your body shuts down in order to conserve energy. Now, obviously, men don't have menstrual cycles, but you'll probably notice your body shutting down in other areas. Like, I'm willing to bet, as you're going through this, like maybe your sex drive has gone down, because that's a non-essential function, if you will, where your body's going to conserve energy, right? And so it'll cut back in other areas. And maybe even outside of your workouts, like you don't probably have a lot of energy to be bouncing off the walls and doing all kinds of stuff. Like you're doing those 3 hours of workouts, and then after that, you're probably like, I just want to sit down and veg out on the couch. Like, I don't want to go walking and playing with my kids and doing errands and out gardening and whatever. Like, you're probably just like, oh, I'm exhausted, right? I just want to sit and sleep, right? So if you're feeling that fatigue and you're feeling hungry all the time, because again, the calories are so low, you need to go on a diet break. Kind of like some people refer to it as reverse dieting or whatever. But bottom line, just learn to maintain this new weight for a while. And after a few, several weeks, or maybe even a couple months, or however long, but once you've kind of let your body reset itself, then you can kind of start to go back to your old routine again. And I bet you'd make even better progress, right? Because you'd be approaching it in a fresher state, physically and mentally, right? So the idea of just more is better, there comes a point of diminishing returns with that. And you're obviously at that point of diminishing returns right now. So like, yeah, simply slashing more calories, adding in, 4 hours of exercise. No, that's like beating a dead horse, right? You're not going to make progress at that. You need to learn to stabilize at your current weight and do that, and then reintroduce it later on. Because again, 60 pounds is a huge amount of weight to lose, right? That is. And I'd much rather you do it in phases, right? Don't try to do it all in one go. So back off for a little while, and like over the holidays, everything else, that's a prime time to do so. And just to, being realistic here, if you indulge in some Christmas dinner and everything else, and you back off the exercise and you bump up the calories a bit, you're probably going to put on a few pounds. I mean, a lot of it is going to be water and glycogen, because you're refilling those stores. Like, for every gram of glycogen, your body's going to retain about 3 to 4 grams of water. So you could easily put back on 5, maybe even 10 pounds, but it doesn't mean it's 5 to 10 pounds of fat. It's basically filling out your body with 5 to 10 pounds of water and glycogen. And that should make you feel stronger, more energetic, and just feel better in general. It'll help to put your hormones back in balance, and then kind of sustain that for a while. And then when you feel up to it again, step it up to the next level. Second, guys. But again, if you'd like some help with this and kind of like brainstorm and strategize it even more, feel free to message me. Like, you can message me through Facebook if your friend's there, or you can email me. Again, I got my contact information down below in the video description. All right, so we've been going for over an hour now, so I'm going to get this ready to clue it up. Alex is saying, thanks for answering my question. You're welcome, my friend. Josen says, Merry Christmas to you and your family. Thank you much. Appreciate it. All right. I'll quickly answer this one. Zach says, had a baby girl recently. Congratulations on becoming a dad. He says, really have no time to go to the gym. Only have a couple free time in one day. We'll build a home gym. Good investment. Initial equipment suggestions. Thank you. I'm going to post a link in my, that's a link to a blog post that I wrote a while back that addresses this scenario from my perspective, because I went through a very similar situation after my son Harvey was born. I got the quote unquote dad bod. And even though I had been, former competitive bodybuilder and all that, I fell off the rails and got fat and lazy. Right? I'm as guilty as anybody, right? Athletes and coaches are not immune to falling off the rails, right? Even though sometimes they try to make themselves look invincible on their Instagram and social media posts, the truth is nobody's invincible. Everybody's susceptible to falling off the rails. And I wrote a blog post sharing exactly how I did it and how I bounced back. And the title of it is called No Time to Exercise, Start with 10 Minutes. And that's exactly what I did. I started back with 10-minute workouts to get back on track. And this is a prime example of good enough, but good enough consistently. Because is a 10-minute workout perfect? Hell no, it ain't perfect. Like, you could do a lot more. But is it better than nothing? Yep. It's a heck of a lot better than nothing. Something's better than nothing. So this is like letting go of that all or nothing mindset and focusing on being good enough and good enough consistently and making the best of your situation. So I'm just posting a link to that in our comments chat section. That should pop up there. And for those of you who are watching the replay, if you want to check it out for yourselves, just head over to leehayward.com, scroll through, and it's called No Time to Exercise, Start with 10 Minutes. And that's it's there on the front page in the blog post if you scroll down and check it out. All right, folks, I'm going to get ready and clue it up. And again, thank you so much for joining in and sharing your comments and feedback and questions and all that stuff. Without you, of course, there would be no video chat, right? It has to be a two-way conversation. So appreciate everyone for joining in and participating. And obviously now this is going to be our last chat until Christmas. So have a very Merry Christmas. If you do celebrate Christmas, I know we have people from all over the world, so maybe some don't, but I'm sure most people do or celebrate some sort of holiday over the Christmas break. So have yourself a Merry Christmas. And I'm just looking at the schedule. So next week we should, we'll still have a video chat next Friday. Good stuff. So we'll be back here again next Friday, same time, same place. And I guess then we'll be strategizing some plans to help maximize our fitness and nutrition come the new year. And I do have some things that I want to share with you, some unique fitness challenges coming up in the new year that I'm going to be sharing. So hint, hint, wink, wink. Those of you who've gone through some of the lose your gut challenges in the past, there's going to be something like that happening very soon coming in the new year. So I want to kind of give you a heads up for keep your eyes open for some new unique challenges. And I do have some special things in store for you to help you kick off the new year on the right track. So make sure to stay tuned for that. And in the meantime, have yourself a fantastic day, a fantastic weekend, and a fantastic Christmas. Take care. Over and out.